blowing a hole in the engine room. That is how the United States Navy just told Iran and the entire world that the blockade is not a bluff. On April 19, 2026, the USS Spruance, a guided missile destroyer assigned to the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, intercepted an Iranian cargo ship named the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman. Nearly 900 feet long, weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, the Tuska was sailing at 17 knots, heading straight toward the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas in direct violation of the American naval blockade. The USS Spruance issued warnings. The Iranian crew refused to listen. For 6 straight hours, the Spruance warned the Tuska to stop. For 6 straight hours, the Tuska kept moving. And then the USS Spruance fired its 5-inch Mk-45 naval gun, one of the most powerful deck guns on any destroyer in the American fleet, directly into the cargo ship's engine room. Several rounds. The Tuska's propulsion system was destroyed. The ship stopped dead in the water, and then 2,200 U.S. Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit boarded the vessel and took full custody of it. Trump posted on Truth Social within hours, his exact words, "Our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room." Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The mainstream media called it an escalation and moved on to the peace talks in Islamabad. What it actually is the moment this entire blockade became real, and the moment every ship captain in the world understood that the United States is not playing a diplomatic game at sea. This is not a warning shot. This is a cannon round through an engine room. And the implications of that single act reach far beyond one disabled cargo ship floating in the Gulf of Oman. To understand exactly what just happened and why it changes everything, you need to understand what the USS Spruance actually is and what it just did legally and militarily. The Spruance is an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, hull number DDG-111, homeported in San Diego, California. It is one of the most capable surface warships in the U.S. Navy. It carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, surface-to-air missiles, anti-submarine weapons, and the 5-inch Mk-45 gun that just put multiple rounds through the Tuska's engine room. The Mk-45 is a naval artillery system that fires shells the size of a small child at over 2,800 feet per second. It is designed to destroy enemy ships, knock out shore targets, and suppress surface threats. It is not a warning tool. When the Spruance pointed that gun at the Tuska's engine room and pulled the trigger, that was a deliberate decision made by a commanding officer to use lethal naval firepower against a civilian cargo ship. CENTCOM called it deliberate, professional, and proportional. Iran called it a ceasefire violation. Iran's top joint military command said publicly that the United States fired on an Iranian commercial ship heading from China to Iran and that it constituted a direct violation of the ceasefire agreement. Two sides calling the same event two completely different things, but here's the fact that cuts through all the spin on both sides. The Tuska is now sitting in the Gulf of Oman under U.S. control, with U.S. Marines on board, its engine room destroyed, going nowhere. That is not a diplomatic dispute, that is a captured ship. Now let's talk about the Tuska itself, because there are details about this ship that make this seizure more strategically significant than just a cargo ship that tried to run a blockade. The Tuska is under United States Treasury Department sanctions. Trump said this directly. He called the ship, quote, under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. That means the United States government had already identified the Tuska as a vessel operating in violation of American sanctions laws, likely related to Iranian oil smuggling or sanctions evasion, before this blockade even began. The ship was not an innocent commercial vessel caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a sanctioned vessel that was actively attempting to deliver cargo to an Iranian port in direct defiance of a naval blockade enforced by the most powerful military on Earth. The Tuska had been tracked by Marine Traffic, the global ship tracking platform, sailing across the Persian Gulf before the interception. It was not hiding. It was moving openly at 17 knots, which is a fast speed for a cargo ship heading toward Bandar Abbas. Either the crew believed the Americans would not actually fire, or they were ordered to attempt the run regardless of the risk. After 6 hours of warnings and a 5-inch cannon round through their engine room, they learned the answer to that calculation the hard way, and with 25 commercial vessels already directed to turn around or return to Iranian ports since the blockade began on April 13th, the Tuska is now the data point that every shipping company, every insurance firm, and every captain in the region will use to recalibrate the risk of trying to reach Iran by sea. Here's the part of this story that the peace talks in Islamabad cannot fix or explain away. The same day that the USS Spruance was putting rounds into the Tuska's engine room, Iran announced it had declined to join a second round of US-Iran talks in Islamabad. Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner were already heading to Pakistan, the same team that spent 21 straight hours in the Serena Hotel 2 weeks ago and came home without a deal. And Iran said no this time. Not yet. Not under these conditions. Iran's official news agency IRNA confirmed Iran had declined to join the talks on Sunday, the same day the Tuska was seized. So you have this picture. The United States Navy is putting cannon shells into Iranian cargo ships in the Gulf of Oman. And simultaneously, the American diplomatic team is flying 17 hours to Islamabad for talks that Iran has already said it will not attend. Trump said the war is very close to over. Trump said most of the points are already negotiated. Trump said it will go pretty quickly. And on the same day he posted all of that, the Tuska was sitting dead in the water with Marines on board, and Iran was refusing to show up to the table. That gap between what Trump is saying publicly and what is actually happening operationally is the gap that every person watching this war needs to understand clearly. Let's walk through what the naval blockade has actually accomplished as of today, because the numbers tell a story that is important. The blockade went into effect on April 13th. In the first 24 hours, no ship entered or exited an Iranian port. 6 ships turned around and complied. By April 15th, 10 vessels had been turned back. By the time of the Tuska seizure on April 19th, CENTCOM confirmed that 25 commercial vessels had been directed to turn around or return to an Iranian port. 25 ships in about 1 week. Trump said the blockade is costing Iran $500 million a day in lost revenue. Trump said the United States loses nothing from running this blockade while Iran bleeds out economically from the complete halt of maritime trade into and out of its ports. But Iran has not sat quietly. Iran had already said, after reopening Hormuz on April 17th, that it closed it again when the U.S. refused to lift the blockade. Iran's armed forces warned that if the security of Iran's ports in the waters of the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea is threatened, no port in the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea will be safe. Iran fired on commercial ships attempting to transit the strait. Trump called that a total violation of the ceasefire agreement. And now the Tuska is the first Iranian vessel seized by the U.S. Navy under this blockade. Iran's Joint Military Command said that means the U.S. violated the ceasefire. Trump said Iran violated the ceasefire first by firing on ships. The ceasefire, which was already crumbling from the moment it was announced on April 8th, now has both sides accusing each other of violations, while U.S. Marines stand on the deck of a captured Iranian cargo ship, and the second round of talks in Islamabad is in doubt. Here is the question that none of the world leaders currently trying to mediate this crisis can cleanly answer. What does it take to end this blockade? Trump said it ends when the transaction with Iran is 100% complete. The transaction means a nuclear deal, permanent reopening of Hormuz on American terms, the removal of enriched uranium from Iranian soil, sanctions relief, the end of support for Hezbollah and other proxy groups, and a comprehensive peace framework. Iran wants reparations for $300 billion in war damage, permanent Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, including the right to charge transit fees, release of all frozen Iranian assets, removal of all U.S. combat forces from the region, and a guarantee of non-aggression. Those two lists of demands are not close to each other. They are not even negotiating from the same premise about who won this war and who owes what to whom. Iran's parliament said the ceasefire must not be extended because it only gives America time to rearm. Iran's parliament speaker said it is impossible for others to pass through Hormuz while Iranians cannot. And the United States just fired a naval gun into an Iranian ship to prove it means what it says about the blockade. The blockade is costing Iran $500 million a day. The war damaged Iran's economy by at least $300 billion. Iran's oil revenue, which funds its entire government, depends on ships being able to leave Iranian ports. Every day the blockade holds, Iran's ability to fund reconstruction, military rebuilding, and basic government services gets smaller. That is the pressure the United States is applying. That is why Iran opened Hormuz on April 17th. That is why Iran declined to join the Islamabad talks on April 19th, while simultaneously watching its cargo ship get its engine room shot out. Iran is calculating whether accepting American terms is less painful than continuing to bleed, and the USS Spruance just reminded them very concretely what bleeding looks like. The Tuska is sitting dead in the Gulf of Oman right now with U.S. Marines on board. Its crew is in American custody. Its engine room is destroyed. 25 other ships have already been turned around since April 13th. Iran has declined to come to the negotiating table in Islamabad. The ceasefire expires April 21st. The second round of talks has no confirmed date. Hormuz is effectively closed again after being open for less than 24 hours. Oil prices are above $100. And J.D. Vance is either in the air heading to Islamabad for talks Iran says it will not attend, or he is turning around. The mainstream media is calling the Tuska seizure an escalation and framing it as a setback to peace talks. What it actually is the moment when the entire world learned that the naval blockade of Iran is not a diplomatic statement. It is a live military operation with real guns, real rounds, and real captured ships. Drop your thoughts in the comments. When the Navy puts a cannon shell through your engine room and parks Marines on your deck, what exactly does Iran do next?